You just got a student with a visual impairment on your caseload. Who should you contact now, and what information should you gather? We are going to answer both of those questions here in this video today. Hi, I'm Cassie Maloney, Orientation and Mobility Specialist and the founder here at the Society of Exceptional Educators. Our mission is to make sure that all educators know exactly what they need to be doing the moment they get a student with a visual impairment on their caseload at all. There is no reason why we should lose out on instructional minutes trying to figure this out. So I have got you covered today. And listen. There is going to be a team around your student, but they're not always going to be there. So it's going to be a little tricky. If you don't know as well, I'm also an orientation and mobility specialist, and I have been for way too many years. So we're not even going to talk about what. And I'm here to just really set the record straight. There are 3 to 4 different types of professionals that you might be working with depending upon your learner's age. And that is just the educational side. Then also you will have the medical side. I'll try to break down both for you. Let's actually start with medical and then we'll go into educational. On the medical side, you'll probably have an ophthalmologist or low vision specialist that your student will be going to. You don't necessarily need to interact with them, but you do need the eye report because you're going to need the eye report in order to fill out any paperwork for their assessments. And if this student is specifically on your caseload educationally, then you'll be the one required to get that paperwork. So make sure you know all of their medical doctors. Depending upon the visual impairment and what's happening with them medically, they might also have an eye surgeon. They might also have a retinal specialist or possibly just an optometrist. But typically, if your student has a severe visual impairment that goes beyond glasses, you're at least looking at an ophthalmologist, a low vision specialist, or some retinal specialist or a surgeon that has been involved with your student. Now, on the educational side, there are also people, but you will be working with them hand in hand, together, compadres. So make sure that as you touch base, you guys set up a fail-safe communication method and one that is direct to one another and can be done in like short bursts because that's just how we all communicate these days. First and foremost is going to be your teacher of students with visual impairments. Some people call them TSVIs, some people call them TVIs. What they are not is a vision therapist. A vision therapist is separate, and your student might actually have a vision therapist. Most of the time, TVIs are just called vision therapists because they are itinerant, and most of the time, your itinerant and related service staff members are considered therapists, but they're not. They are a certified teacher that is certified to work solely with students with visual impairments. We go to school to get our bachelor's and or master's degree in this specific kind of education. It is just like the education requirements of regular or general ed teaching. It is not the same as occupational therapists or speech language therapists. Those are completely separate and those go a little bit more on the medical model. TVIs are all on the educational model, and so they will be working hand in hand with the teacher in order to make the school day and all of the materials and all of the worksheets and all of the activities accessible to the learner with the visual impairment. Is it the TVI's sole responsibility to make sure that that learner gets all of their materials in an accessible way? No, it's actually the teacher's. So, as a teacher, if your TVI asks for documents in advance, it's because they also have a caseload of about 30 students, just like the general education teacher does. It's just that the TVI has to go between schools to get to all of their students. And so they're working with 20 other teachers as well in order to make sure all of their students have all the things that they need. That's what a TVI does. You might also have a Braillist that you work with, or the TVI might be the Braillist themselves. A Braillist is somebody who brailles your work that you need brailled. And this is somebody who typically sits at the desk and brailles things, and that's oftentimes their full-time job, and or they might be a paraprofessional that is in a classroom half the time and then a brailleist half the time. It just depends on the district's needs, the school's needs, and that specific student's needs and the availability of it all, right? Because being a brailleist, I believe, is also a certified position, not as strict and not as many school hours as a TVI, but still might need some requirements. On the mobility side of it, you have an orientation and mobility specialist. An orientation and mobility specialist helps your students know where they are in space and helps them to understand how to get around. So they might be working with your student on how to know where their seat is, how to hang up their backpack, how to get to the cafeteria, how to get around the cafeteria, how to get to the water fountain, and all of their routes on campus. They might also be working with your student on community-based instruction, such as going around in a grocery store. They might be willing and able to go with you on field trips, especially if you're a special ed teacher, life skills classroom, and to be able to help facilitate those activities. The orientation and mobility specialist might also be working with your student off campus to teach them how to get around the environment, a residential environment, either their own residential environment where they live or the one near campus, depending upon the transportation rules. They might be teaching them how to travel downtown, how to get to work, how to actually go grocery shopping, how to actually solicit assistance. The orientation and mobility specialist might also be doing things like drop-off lessons, which is where we drop the student off fully trained. Okay, we don't just like do this, but we drop the student off somewhere. We don't tell them where they are. They have to figure out where they are, and then they have to make it back to a planned destination. They might work with the student on cane skills, crossing streets, riding buses, paratransit, and all things of that nature, how to actually get around and maneuver around in their environments and to know where they are as they're doing so. Then you might have a certified assistive technology instructional specialist, and that's a CADIS or AT specialist. Sometimes the TVI also takes on an AT role. TVIs are pretty cool, right? Like they have to do all of those things. For AT, that person is working on how to access the digital environment. Our lives are so digital right now. Like there's no nothing without it being digital. So they work with our students on being able to understand and access screen readers, being able to get all of their devices and all of the different modes up to par for our students' needs. They work with students on how to actually access their device and how to use them, how to figure out when things are going wrong, and how to be productive citizens in the face of our digital era. The AT specialist is really, really important, especially as you get into older ages. I mean, what, third graders are being given Chromebooks and iPads now, so it's starting younger and younger. I think my fourth grader has an email address he's responsible for checking. I don't know how they expect young kids like that to do that, executive functioning wise, but if that's the case, then the AT specialist may be able to help you figure out how to help your student. This is also itinerant. O&M, TVI, and AT are all itinerant positions for the most part. Then, as a student gets older, there's such thing as a vocational rehabilitation therapist. And that person is going to be like the TVI for adults. And they're going to start working with your student maybe around 14, maybe a little bit older. as they transition into their post-secondary goals. You might see that the VRT will ask for a vocational evaluation sometime before the end of their secondary education years, sometimes around 16, sometimes around 17, sometimes as young as 14. It just depends on your learner's goals and what's going on. You might also have a job coach, which is kind of the same, but this person specifically is helping your learner function on the job. They might be working with your learner on how to get to the job. They might be working with your learner on how to perform a job. All the while, the job coach is helping specifically with gaining and maintaining employment, where vocational rehab is about all of it. It's about daily living skills, but mostly vocational. Why? Because capitalism. So if you have a student with a visual impairment that has just come onto your caseload, reach out to all of these people. You can ask your admin. You should have access to all of their information in the document somewhere. If you have a question about your student and do they even have a visual impairment and you're just starting down that path, then the first things first is you need to get the parents to get an eye report and then reach out to your low vision department or your special ed department and see who the TVI might be to help you with that process. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any other questions, please join us within the society. It's a free membership where we dive into all of these topics every single week. I will not leave you stranded. You do not have to do this alone. Come join us. We like to hang out. I'll send you information on a weekly basis. We have semesterly workshops as well. Great community, because ultimately, I think I just shook a bunch of stuff. Ultimately, it's your responsibility to make sure that the student gets what they need. And you probably don't have a lot of time to do that. So what I want to do is offer you that support. I hope you can use this information to help you take a step forward in being a better educator for your learners with visual impairments. And I'll see you next time.